The tragic story of Bronson Battersby, the toddler left alone, after his father's sudden death. In December 2023, a devastating tragedy unfolded in the quiet seaside town of Skegness that would leave an entire community heartbroken. At the center of the story was a small 2-year-old boy named Bronson Battersby, an innocent child whose life ended in circumstances too painful for many people to comprehend. Bronson lived with his father, Kenneth Battersby, in a modest apartment. Kenneth was a single parent who spent most of his time caring for his young son. Friends and neighbors described him as a father who loved his child deeply and tried his best to provide for him despite the challenges of raising a toddler alone. Their home was simple, but it was the place where Bronson played, laughed, and spent his days close to the only parent he knew. No one could have imagined how quickly their lives would change. One ordinary day, tragedy struck without warning. Kenneth suddenly suffered a fatal heart attack inside their home. The sudden medical emergency took his life almost instantly, leaving him collapsed in the apartment. In that moment, Bronson's entire world changed. At just 2 years old, the toddler was far too young to understand what had happened. He could not call for help, open doors to search for neighbors, or even grasp why his father was no longer responding to him. All he knew was that the person who always cared for him was suddenly silent. Alone in the apartment, the small child remained trapped in a situation no one could see from the outside. Hours slowly turned into days. Inside the quiet home, Bronson had no access to food or water, and no adult was there to care for him. For a toddler, survival depends entirely on someone else's help, and without it, he became weaker with every passing hour. Outside, life in the neighborhood continued as normal. People walked past the building, cars drove through the streets, and neighbors carried on with their daily routines, unaware of the silent tragedy unfolding behind the apartment door. No cries for help reached anyone, and no one realized that a helpless child was struggling to survive alone. Eventually, concerns about the family led authorities to conduct a welfare check. When officials entered the apartment, they discovered the heartbreaking reality inside. Kenneth Battersby had died from the heart attack, and little Bronson Battersby had passed away after being left alone without care. The news quickly spread across the country and beyond, shocking people who could not imagine how such a tragedy could occur in modern society. The image of a small child left in such a vulnerable situation deeply affected those who heard the story. For many people, Bronson's death became more than just a tragic news story. It became a painful reminder of how fragile life can be and how quickly circumstances can change for families. The incident sparked discussions about community, awareness, welfare checks, and how systems meant to protect vulnerable people might sometimes fail to reach those who need help the most. Experts and social workers began examining whether more regular contact, monitoring, or support systems could help prevent such tragedies in the future. Today, the story of Bronson Battersby continues to move people around the world. Though his life was tragically short, his story has encouraged conversations about compassion, responsibility, and the importance of looking out for those who cannot protect themselves. For many, it serves as a heartbreaking reminder that behind closed doors, vulnerable lives may depend on the awareness and care of the community around them. Little Bronson's story remains a powerful symbol of why societies must always strive to protect their most helpless members.